Welcome to this Arnall-Culliford knitwear tutorial on embroidering a face on hand-knitted toys. This tutorial is part of our Boost Your Knitting series, 12 projects designed to teach you 12 new techniques from the world's best knitting designers. If you'd like to find out more about our book Boost Your Knitting, or purchase kits or yarns to go with any of the projects within the book, then do click the link up here in order to head over to our website, where you'll find all the information you need. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be using Ella Austin's beautiful Brunny the Bunny design in order to demonstrate how to create a beautiful embroidered face on your hand-knitted toy. When you're making hand-knitted toys, it's really important to take your time in the finishing steps, because you can absolutely change the personality of your toy in doing so. So don't be afraid to take things out and try again if you need to. It's well worth it to get a really cute finished toy at the end of the day. The key feature on the face of a knitted toy is the eyes. So we're going to start by deciding which buttons to use for eyes on our bunny. And I've pulled out of my button collection a selection of eyes that I thought would be about the right size, and I'm going to start with the biggest ones and see how they look. The easiest way to do this is to use the button and just use a pin to pop it in roughly the right place. Looks a bit mean, but it will very quickly give you a feel for whether they're going to give the right look to your finished animal. So I suspect that those are a little bit big, so I'm going to take them off. And let's try some which are just one size down. I think the size is better with those. They're quite dark against the pale grey, and this is very much a matter of personal preference. They're quite nice, I don't mind them. I've got some slightly more mottledy ones. Oops. The good thing about pinning them on is you can move them around and see what works best in terms of a positioning for the eyes. Obviously slightly wide set eyes is quite a nice way of making the animal look approachable and friendly. I quite like those little mottledy ones. And once you've settled on the buttons you want to use, then it's a case of deciding on the position for them. I'm very much using the line of, are they decreases or decreases? Sorry, the decrease line that we've got here and here to position the eyes. And again, I'm going to compare it with the photos in the book, or in my case, actual Brunny. And so we can see where they are. I think those are about right. So then we're just going to have a little look underneath at what stitch it was in. That was in a decrease there. And that one's just going to try being just there. And once you're happy with the position for the two eyes, then we're going to sew them in place. I've threaded the yarn that I'm going to use to sew on the eyes onto a needle, and I've tied a bit of a knot in the end of the yarn. I've decided to use a darker coloured yarn. It's the same colour as I'm going to use for the cross for Brunny's nose, and I think it'll just not provide too much of a contrast with the button eyes, which is what I want. So I'm going to bury that knot inside the stuffing, and I'm going to do that by going in through the back of Brunny And then actually I'm just going to move the button out of the way for a moment. Oop. And then I'm going to come up in the right spot where that pin was marking where we wanted the eye to be sewn. So I'm going to pull it through. Okay, now it's securely embedded in the stuffing. If you want to secure it further, you can go back down through the same hole out somewhere else and then back through the stuffing. If you go through the stuffing a couple of times, it kind of ties into the stuffing without being a problem. Now that we've come up in the right place, we can take that pin out, and now we're going to make a little loop on the surface here and just basically tie the yarn on. Obviously we want to be really sure that we're attaching our button very, very securely to the knitted toy. There we go. So I've basically tied the yarn on as well as having a knot that's embedded in the back of the stuffing. I'm now going through the button, and we want the button to sit with the line vertically. So we're going to sew, not round her arm. Going to sew the eye on like that, and then through again. And then I'm just going to come out at a random spot. Oops, didn't mean to split the yarn there. Come out at a random spot on the back. So the first eye is sewn securely in place. And I've come back out the back of the head. I'm then going to go back down that same hole, and I'm going to come out where my pin was. So I've basically taken the yarn through the stuffing as a way again of securing it. There we go, coming out where that pin was. You can see on the back it's not attached on the back. So come out where the pin was, and then again we're going to go through the button. Again, we want the stitch through the button to be nicely vertical, so I'm going to go through the fabric on the body there in a nice vertical way. Tightening it up, and then through again. And again, I'm going to come out at the back. Oops. In the middle of a stitch without splitting it, hopefully. There we go. And now to look carefully at Bunny's face and decide whether I'm happy with the placement of the eyes. It looks like I've had a reasonably good result there. They're both lying nice and horizontal with each other. They're both the same distance from the tip of the nose. So I think I'm happy with those, and I don't have to redo it. But if I did have to redo it, all you'd need to do is to carefully just snip through the yarn on the front of the button. That way you don't risk snipping through a bit of the body, which is obviously you wouldn't want, because then your face would unravel and all that work would be undone. So just snip through carefully on the front of the button, take it off, and then you can pull the bits of yarn out. It doesn't matter if some of the yarn had stayed buried inside the head. Nobody's going to see it if it's on the inside. That's absolutely fine. So all we need to do now is pass the yarn back through the stuffing a few times just to lock it in place so that it's not going to come undone, and that button's going to stay nice and secure on Bunny's head. All Brunny needs now is a cross across her nose to finish her off, and again we're going to be using the stitches as a guide, counting them across so that we end up with our cross making the corners of a nice square. I've threaded some contrasting yarn onto a tapestry needle, and I've made a reasonable size knot in the tail again, and I'm going to pass that through. I'm going to find a nice big stitch to go through. We've got some slightly larger ones at the side here, so I'm going to go through there in order to bury the end, and then I'm going to come up roughly where I want my cross to start, which is somewhere around here. Oh, on the decreased line of stitches. There we go. So you can see as we pull it through, the knot is going to go through the stitch and be buried in the stuffing. I can't actually pull it through even if I try really quite hard. So we come up there, which is level with that stitch there, and then we want to go straight down from there to work out where the next corner is going to be, and I think that looks about right. And then we're going to pass through and again come up so that it's level with the stitches where the end is coming across. So to make the cross we're going to do that. So that's going to put it across there. Okay, look and check you're happy with it. Obviously working with the double strand you need to make sure that they're staying even. One isn't pulled tighter than the other, and that they're lying next to each other. A little bit of fiddling now is probably well worthwhile so that it sits nicely at the end. There's one and there's the other, so I've just adjusted them slightly. And then we're going to go back up to the stitch on the other side. I went through the decrease on that side, so I'm going to try going down through the decrease there, and then I'm going to go through to the back of the work. And then I'm going to look at how it looks, see if I'm happy with it. Okay, again I'm just looking at the two strands and making sure that they're both at the same tension as each other, and that the whole thing isn't pulling anything out of shape. So it's a case of getting it tight enough that it lies flat on the fabric, but not so tight that it's pulling out of shape. Here, that's pulling out of shape a little bit there, I think. So I'm just going to loosen it off. Try again. Don't really want the two strands crossing each other. So let me tighten that one first, and then let me gently pull the other strand down on top. There we go, I think that's a bit better. Now, it feels a little bit to me looking at it as if this cross should be lying a little bit lower down. So I think I'm going to experiment with taking it out and making the bottom of the cross lower. And in fact, we might just take it a little bit wider at the top as well. I'm going to have to cut the yarn off the needle here, but that's no problem. Just snip it off. And then I can take it back out, and the yarn on its own will pull back through very easily. If I had the needle on the end, it would have got caught in all the stuffing and would have been a real pain. So I'll put my yarn ends back onto the needle. There's one through. And there's the other. So I'm very carefully going to move the end over by basically a stitch. Oops. There we go. So I've moved where the yarn was coming up across by a stitch in that direction, and I want it to sit right across the point of the nose. So again, I need to visualize my square again, heading across here on that line of stitches to there, and then down from there, I think to approximately there. And then I'm going to follow along so that we're into the same column of stitches down here, so that the bottom two corners lie even. Let's have a look at that. Okay, and let's tighten the threads one at a time so that they lie nicely on each other. And now it looks like we're crossing the nose much more pleasingly, and we're going to go into the stitch there, which should be level. We'll come out the back again. Am I happy with that? Oh, it's really tricky, isn't it? I think those are sitting nicely, and that's looking good. So yes, I think I am happier with that, like that. So all I need to do now is repeat the burying process so that my end doesn't get wiggled free and come off. So all I have to do now is go back through the fabric a couple of times in different directions to basically tie the ends into the stuffing. And there's Brunny's completed face with all the ends woven in, and she's beginning to have something of a personality now. It's amazing what a difference it makes. But the secrets, well, they're not really secrets, are they? But there are two main things to remember. Number one is use the stitches to guide you for how you're lining things up. And number two, don't be afraid to undo it and redo it if you're not happy with how it goes first time round. You always can have another go at it. It's not a problem, and most people are very likely to need to redo it. It's quite unlikely that you're going to put everything in exactly the right place first time round. So don't be afraid to have another run at it. Thank you for watching our tutorial on embroidering faces on hand knitted toys. I hope now you feel confident in having a go at finishing off your project. And don't be afraid to take it out and try again if you need to. Most of us take at least a couple of goes to get the finished face just right. And it's well worth taking the time to do so. If you'd like to find out more about our book, Boost Your Knitting, or any of our other techniques-led books, yarns and knitters' treats, then do click the link up here to head over to our online shop. Every purchase from our online shop helps support us and allows us to make more video tutorials for you. So we really appreciate every purchase. Thank you ever so much. If you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, then do click the circular icon on screen. That will ensure that you know when we publish our next video tutorial. Thank you ever so much for watching. Bye bye.